Sigmund Freud. The Boy Who Listened to Shadows. Chapter 1. A quiet house, a quiet boy. The house was small and the winters were long. Snow sat on the roof like soft white feathers, and cold wind walked through the narrow streets of the old Austrian town. Inside that quiet house, a baby boy opened his dark, curious eyes. His name was Sigmund. He did not cry much. He looked, he listened. Even before he could talk, he seemed to watch the world as if the world were telling him secrets. His mother held him close. Her dress smelled like warm bread. Her voice was gentle, almost like a lullaby. When she whispered to him, Sigmund's eyes followed every sound as if words were small lights moving through the air. His father was older, with a calm face and thoughtful steps. He sold wool for a living. Sometimes after work, he sat near the fire and told stories of faraway places. Sigmund always turned his head to listen. He did not yet understand the stories, but he felt something in them, mystery, sadness, and the strange, quiet truth that people carried inside themselves. The family was not rich. The walls of the house were thin, but love filled the rooms like warm air. There were books, too, old heavy books with worn-out covers and pages that smelled like dust and time. One night, as the candles burned low, Sigmund woke from a dream. He sat up in his small bed and looked around the dark room. Shadows moved gently on the walls. The wind tapped at the window. The moonlight was soft like silver water on the floor. He could not remember the dream clearly, but he felt something inside. A feeling that dreams were not nothing. They were stories, messages, whispers from a place no one could see. He lay down again, his eyes slowly closing, and thought in his small, quiet way, "Someday I want to understand why people dream." Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, the boy with listening eyes fell asleep again, with mysteries waiting for him in the dark. Chapter 2. The City of Noise and Secrets. Years passed. The small town grew too small for the Freud family. One day they packed their few things, clothes, Joe, books, a few dishes, and many quiet hopes, and moved to a big city. Vienna. Vienna was loud. Horses' hooves hit the streets. Voices rose and fell like waves. Shops were full of color. Smoke curled up from chimneys. The smell of bread, coal, and rain mixed in the air. For little Sigmund, the city was a new world. There were so many faces, so many eyes, so many secrets. At school, he sat in the front row. He watched the teacher's mouth as it formed each word, his notebooks filled with neat, tiny writing. Other boys talked and played, but Sigmund listened. He listened to words and also to the silence between words. He noticed when a classmate joked, but his eyes looked sad. He noticed when a teacher shouted a little too loudly at a small mistake. Why is he so angry today? Sigmund wondered. Maybe something happened at home. He did not say this out loud. He just kept watching, collecting small pieces of human stories in his quiet mind. At night he studied by candlelight. Shadows from the flame moved on the wall like slow dancers. The house was crowded, many children, little space, but his mother tried to give him as much quiet as she could. She believed in his mind. She often said, "Sigmund, you must use your gift. You must go far." Her faith in him felt like a warm hand on his back, gently pushing him forward. Outside, Vienna sang its busy song. Inside, a boy with dark eyes was learning to see not just what people did, but what they felt and what they hid. He did not know it yet, but the city was a perfect place for someone who wanted to understand the human heart. Every street, every cafe, Every classroom was full of stories, and Sigmund Freud was quietly taking notes. Chapter 3. The Choice of a Path. Years went by. The boy grew taller, his school books grew heavier. Teachers started to say things like, "He will do something important one day." Important. The word sounded big, almost too big. When school ended, a serious question waited. What will you do with your life? Some of his classmates chose business. Some joined the army. Others went to work in shops. Sigmund's mind turned to one thing again and again, the human mind. He had many interests, languages, history, chef, philosophy, but one question stayed close. Why do people feel what they feel? Why do they suffer in ways no one can see? He decided to study medicine, not because he wanted to be a normal doctor, but because medicine was the door to the brain. On the first day at the university, he walked through stone halls with tall windows. The air smelled of ink, dust, and old wood. Professors spoke of bones, muscles, nerves, and blood. Sigmund listened, but always his attention moved back to one silent place. The space inside people's heads where thoughts were born. He saw patients in the hospital. Some had broken arms, fevers, wounds. Doctors could help them, but some patients had no clear illness. Their bodies were fine, yet they could not stop shaking, or they could not speak, or they felt a heavy sadness day after day. For no plain reason, the other doctors often said their nerves are weak, or they are exaggerating. But Sigmund felt there was more, much more. He looked into their eyes and thought, there is a story here, and no one is listening to it. He kept going to classes. He studied the brain under a microscope. He learned the names of each part. But no matter how many Latin words he memorized, one simple question kept beating like a drum in his mind. How can we help the pain that lives in the mind, not only in the body? He did not have the answer yet, but he knew he would not stop until he found a better way to listen to that invisible pain. Chapter 4. The Woman with Two Lives. Winter in Vienna was cold and gray. Street lamps glowed like small yellow moons. In the hospital, a young doctor named Freud walked down long corridors in a heavy coat, holding patient files in his hands. One day, he heard of a special case from an older doctor, Joseph Breuer. Breuer spoke of a young woman with a secret name, Anna O. Her body behaved strangely. At times she could not move one arm. At other times she could not drink water even when thirst burned her throat. Her eyes saw things that were not there. Doctors could find no wound, no fever, no infection. Her body was like a locked door with no key. But Breuer had tried something unusual. He asked Anna to talk, not about the weather, not about daily things. He asked her to talk about small memories, old fears, thoughts that came to her mind for no reason. In the dark, in a calm room with Breuer listening quietly, Anna began to tell stories. She spoke of her sick father, of days and nights of watching him suffer. She spoke of anger, guilt, and deep, deep sadness. Sometimes, after she spoke of a painful moment, one of her strange symptoms became lighter. Sometimes it disappeared for a while. She herself called it Noach, the talking cure. When Freud heard this, his heart almost stopped for a moment. Talking? Could talking really change the body? He visited Breuer again and again. They discussed Anna's case late into the evening. The room filled with tobacco smoke and questions. What if, Freud thought, the mind has layers we cannot see? What if hidden memories, pushed down and forgotten, still live inside and make the body suffer? He did not know the full shape of this idea yet, but he felt as if someone had opened a small secret door in a great dark house. Behind that door, a new world waited, and Freud was not afraid to walk in. Chapter 5. The House with a Hidden Room. The more Freud listened to patients' stories, the more one picture grew in his mind. He began to imagine the mind as a house. On the top floor, with open windows and bright light, lived our conscious thoughts. These were the things we knew. My name is this. I am hungry. I am angry at my friend. This part of the house was easy to see. We could walk around it, talk in it, invite guests there. But under this floor, Freud imagined another level, a lower room, the basement. This room was dark. The door was locked. Most people did not even know it was there. In this hidden room, Freud believed lived many things. Forgotten memories, old fears, forbidden wishes, pain that was too strong to feel every day. When something inside us felt too heavy, too shameful, too dangerous, we pushed it down into that room. We told ourselves, it doesn't matter. It's over. But the things in the basement did not die. They waited, they pushed, they tried to come back up. They might come back in a dream, in a sudden fear, in a mistake of speech, or in a strange symptom in the body. Freud gave this basement a name, the unconscious. It was a bold idea. Many people laughed. They said, if we cannot see it, it is not real. But Freud felt strongly that this hidden room explained many puzzles. He now saw symptoms not as random, but as messages from the basement of the mind. He decided, I will make my work to open that door, slowly, carefully, and see what lies inside. It was a dangerous house to walk through. But Freud had always been curious about places other people were afraid to enter. Chapter 6. The Couch and the River of Words. Freud left the hospital and opened his own office on a quiet street in Vienna. The room was not large, but it felt full. Books lined the walls. Small statues from ancient times stood on shelves. Old gods, old faces, as if many ages were silently watching. In the middle of the room stood a couch, long and soft. It soon became the most famous couch in the world. Freud asked his patients to lie down on it, not sit up. He sat behind them, out of their sight. Why behind? People asked. Because, he answered, I want them to forget my face and listen only to their own thoughts. He gave them a strange instruction. Say everything that comes to your mind. Do not choose. Do not judge. Do not hide. Just let your words flow. At first, patients felt nervous. They were used to doctors asking questions and them giving short answers. Now, the doctor was silent. They had to lead. They began with simple things. I came here by tram. It is cold today. I slept badly last night. Freud waited. Slowly, like a river finding its path, their words began to move deeper. A woman suddenly remembered her mother's hard hand on her shoulder when she was small. A man, speaking of work trouble, suddenly started talking about his strict father. Another patient, angry at a neighbor, found himself crying about a brother who had died many years ago. Freud listened, his hands folded, his mind alert. He listened not just to each word, but to how words followed one another. He called this method free association. He believed that if a person spoke freely without choosing, their words would draw a map of the unconscious. Sometimes the room was filled with tears, sometimes with long silences, sometimes with sudden laughter that felt almost like pain. Freud did not treat these moments as random. He saw them as doors opening. The couch became a place where hidden stories rose from the basement of the mind into the light. And Freud, like a careful listener by a dark river, tried to follow the current to its secret source. Chapter 7. Nights of Dreams. Freud's work did not end when the sun went down. At night, in his home, while the city was quiet, he sat at his desk under a small lamp and wrote. He wrote about his patients, about their fears and wishes, about the strange ways their minds spoke through symptoms and slips. But one part of his work burned more brightly than all the rest. Dreams. He had always been fascinated by his own dreams. Now, after hearing so many dreams from patients, he felt sure they were important. People often said, it was just a dream, or it made no sense. Freud disagreed. To him, a dream was a story told in another language. He wrote a book with a careful, serious title, The Interpretation of Dreams. In it, he said something bold. A dream is a wish, often a hidden wish. During the day, we control ourselves. We say, I must not feel that. I must not think that. But at night, when we sleep, the guard at the door of the house loosens. Hidden wishes and old fears walk out. Yet they do not walk out naked. They put on masks. They hide behind symbols. A house may stand for a body. A long road may stand for a life. A trip may secretly mean a desire to escape. A storm may stand for anger. The dream we remember in the morning, the clear story, he called the sarf manifest content. The hidden meaning under it he called the latent content. He believed that if we gently took apart the pictures in a dream and listened to the dreamer's thoughts about each part, how we could find the secret wish or fear that shaped it. When the book first came out, very few people read it. Some who did laughed. But Freud did not stop. He had seen too many lives change when people took their own dreams seriously. The night, he thought, is not just for sleep. It is the time when the soul tries to talk. Chapter 8. Fire and Arguments. As Freud's ideas spread, so did arguments. Some young doctors and thinkers came to Vienna to learn from him. They sat in his home, in a circle of chairs, smoking, drinking coffee, talking long into the night. They called themselves a Wednesday group because they met on Wednesdays. They discussed dreams, the unconscious, childhood memories, love, fear, and all the secret parts of human life. Some of these students later became famous too. They admired Freud, but they also began to form their own ideas. Not all of them agreed with their teacher. One student said, "You give too much power to sexuality in your theories." Another said, "I think people are also driven by growth, creativity, and social ties, not only by forbidden wishes." Freud listened, but he did not like when his main ideas were changed too much. He'd fought hard for his theories against the world. He did not want to see them pulled apart from inside his own circle. Slowly, friends became opponents. Letters grew cold. Meetings turned sharp. Some students left. They started new schools of psychology with new names. These breaks hurt Freud deeply. He felt betrayed. At the same time, he knew that strong ideas create strong reactions. Outside the circle, many doctors still called him a dreamer, a danger, or even a kind of intellectual criminal. He kept working anyway. He wrote book after book. He saw patient after patient. He smoked many cigars to calm his nerves. His jaw began to suffer, but his mind did not rest. To some, he was a hero. To others, a madman. But no one who took psychology seriously could ignore him. Freud had not only opened a door, he had lit a fire. And fire, as he well knew, does not burn only one way. Chapter 9. A city turns dark. Time moved on. The world changed in ways that Freud's theories could not stop. Freud was now an old man. His hair had turned white. His face had deep lines, like careful writing made by time. Vienna, too, was changing. New flags appeared into the streets. Armies marched. Voices shouted words of hate. Freud was Jewish. For many years, he had lived and worked without great trouble. Now the air in Europe grew cold with danger. In Germany and India, a man named Hitler and his followers had taken power. They hated Jews. Their symbol, a black swastika, began to spread like a dark stain. In 1938, the Nazis came to Austria. They took over the government. People cheered in the streets. But for Jewish families, the cheers sounded like thunder before a storm. Shops were broken, synagogues were burned. Some Jews were arrested and sent away. Freud's own books were thrown into fires in some cities. He had once joked, "Only our books are being burned now. They used to burn people." But now, even that dark joke felt too close to the truth. One day, Nazi officers came to his home. They searched rooms, took money, and questioned his daughter Anna, who was also a psychoanalyst. Friends from other countries begged Freud to leave Vienna. He was 82, tired, and in pain from cancer in his jaw. He did not want to say goodbye to the city where he had lived so long. But at last he understood. If I stay, I will not be safe. My family will not be safe. With help from students and supporters in England and elsewhere, Freud and his close family received papers to go to London. He left Vienna like a man leaving a burning house. No time to look back. No time to say all the goodbyes that lived in his heart. On the train out of Austria, he sat silent, eyes on the land that slowly slid away. Behind him, a city of memories. Ahead of him, a last, short chapter. Chapter 10. The Last Garden. London was different from Vienna. Different light, different sounds, different sky. Freud and his family moved into a small house in a quiet part of the city. The house had a garden with a simple lawn, some bushes, and a few trees. He brought with him his old couch, his books, and the statues that had watched him work for so many years. The cancer in his jaw hurt him greatly. He had to wear a special device in his mouth to speak. Eating was difficult. Every word cost him pain. Yet he still saw a few patients, still listened, still tried to understand. In the mornings, he sometimes sat by the window looking into the garden. Leaves moved gently in the wind. Birds hopped on the grass. Children's voices floated from nearby houses. He'd spent his life walking in the dark rooms of the human mind. Now, in his last years, he sat in the soft English light, half in this world, half somewhere else. Friends and students visited. They spoke quietly about work, about the past, about the future of psychoanalysis. Bombs would soon fall on London. War was spreading. But Freud was near the end of his personal road. In September 1939, after long suffering, he died in that London house. The garden went on being a garden. The world went on being the world. but something real and deep had entered it and would not leave. A new way to look inside ourselves. Chapter 11. After the man, Freud was gone, but his ideas lived on. His books were translated into many languages. Students taught other students. Therapists opened offices in many countries. Not all of them followed Freud's theories exactly. Some changed parts. Some rejected certain ideas and kept others. Critics grew louder. They said, "He made mistakes." "Yes," others answered, "but he also opened doors no one else had opened." Today, we use words he helped to spread: unconscious, repression, defense, ego, talking cure. We no longer see mental pain only as, madness. We see it as something that can be listened to, understood, and Miki sometimes healed. Millions of people have lain on couches or sat in chairs and spoken about their lives to someone trained to listen in Freud's way. His theories have been attacked, tested, changed, and sometimes defended again. But whether one agrees or disagrees, one thing is clear. Freud changed the questions we ask about ourselves. Not just, what do you do? But, what do you feel? Not just, what happened? But what did it mean to you? Not just, why are you sick? But, what story does your pain try to tell? The boy who had once listened to shadows on his bedroom wall had helped the whole world take shadows seriously. Chapter 12. The boy who listened. If we go back, past the famous books, past the arguments, past the smoke-filled rooms, we find again a small house, in an old town, and a quiet child with open eyes. We see him lying in bed, hearing the wind outside, feeling the weight of a dream he does not yet understand. We see him in school, watching faces. We see him in university, walking through cold halls, thinking ahead of his time. We see him in the hospital, looking at patients no one else knows how to help. We see his surprise when, or talking, makes symptoms softer. We see him sitting beside the famous couch, listening to word rivers and dream fragments, slowly drawing a map of how the human mind might be built. We see him as an old man in London, tired, hurt, but still holding on to the belief that looking inward matters. And then we see something else. We see ourselves, because each of us has a house inside, rooms we show, rooms we lock, stories we tell, and stories we hide. Freud's life does not tell us what to think, but it invites us to pay attention to our dreams, to our slips of the tongue, to our fears that make no sense, to our sudden tears over old memories. It invites us to be a little more like the child he once was, to watch, to listen, to ask, gently, what is really happening inside me? The snow is gone now. The city has changed. The world has moved on. But somewhere, in every quiet room, where someone speaks honestly about their own heart and someone else listens without judging, in that moment, the spirit of Sigmund Freud's work is still alive, and his story, told in simple words, remains the story of a boy who listened to shadows and grew into a man who taught the world to listen to itself.